Welcome to another episode of Saving One Life Yours, a podcast brought to you by tag4life. We shine a powerful light on medically vulnerable people who, for whatever reason, can't speak for themselves. Our hosts and moderators are Ken Feld, tag4life's Chief Operating Officer, and Victoria Yoakum, tag4life's Marketing and Social Media Director. Today, Ken and Victoria sit down with Bethany and Hannah Kieme, the founders of HeartCharged, who at an early age received a diagnosis of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, HCM. HCM is the number one killer of student athletes and is asymptomatic, so it most often kills without warning. Follow these two courageous young women as they share their story and what they are doing with their lives now.
Hi, Victoria. Good to see you again.
Hi, Ken. Good to see you too.
Finally, we had an opportunity for you and I to host a podcast together. We've had a couple of delays, but now today's the day, and it's looking forward to doing this.
Me too. We like to call ourselves the Dream Team. So
I don't know if anyone else calls us that, but certainly we like to refer to us as that. I think it's only appropriate. We have two guests today, so we'll be kind of playing the game of who controls the microphone, I think, between the four of us. But welcome, ladies. I've heard about you and learned about you in December and have been really looking forward to this opportunity to get to know you and hear your story. The one thing that I've kind of been curious about, and it's been really enlightening for me while doing these, is to learn the stories and the courage that everybody has when it comes to their medical history and their stories and how they persevered and actually created beautiful things as a result. Most people outside of our network don't realize that what we go through, whether it's cancer or a liver transplant or the situation that you girls are in, ladies are in, really has an opportunity to make a huge impact in people's lives. And I'm just thrilled that you've agreed to join us this afternoon and look forward to learning more. So with that, Victoria, I'd like to hand it off to you and take it away.
Thank you, Ken. I couldn't have said it better myself, and I'm very excited to learn more about you ladies. So just to start off, could you just tell us a bit about your story, your journeys, and sort of how you got here?
So I guess we'll start at the beginning. Our aunt, our mom's sister, was diagnosed in early 2013 with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM. She found out that it's a genetic condition, and so she told my mom, and there's 9 of us kids, go 6 boys and then 3 girls. And so she was like, hey, I just got diagnosed with this heart condition. It is genetic. It is, the number one killer of athletes. We were all very active. We danced, we played sports of all kinds. And so my mom was like, okay, let me get the kids checked. We went to our pediatrician. I had a few fainting episodes. Told him and said, hey, now we have family history of this condition. He listened with his stethoscope and was like, nah, you guys, I don't think you have anything wrong. Well, my mom was like, okay, we're still going to see a cardiologist to make sure our heart, is checked by a specialist. And September 13th of 2015, my mom was able to get one appointment, and she decided out of all the kids that were still at home that I would go in. I went in and was diagnosed with HCM as well, and I was diagnosed with a pretty severe case in which they told me once I was diagnosed that all the sports I was playing and the dance that I was doing, I needed to immediately give that up, immediately get on medication, and start figuring out what I could do.
Could you tell us real briefly what HCM is?
Yeah,
so listeners can understand,
So HCM, is a heart condition. It's basically means that your left ventricle is overgrown or is too thick. So being too thick, it means you have less room for blood to be in there. Also, the fibers in your heart are not aligned So because of all of that, your heart overworks, and because there's less blood, it leads to irregular heartbeats or arrhythmias, and those irregular heartbeats can lead to sudden cardiac arrest or ventricular tachycardia, or fibrillation, which can be deadly. So hence why they told me not to do anything adrenaline based, because anything that would get our hearts excited is not good, because our hearts are like, when you think of a crazy hyper static like thing, you would think of our hearts. And even when we're not doing like activities of running or anything like that we could just be sitting here and our hearts all of a sudden will have a mind of its own and just be like, you know what? I'm going to start beating really fast, and that's going to lead me to beating erratically right now just because. So yeah, that's what HCM is. And so when I was diagnosed, they do an echocardiogram or an ultrasound to measure the thickness of your ventricle. And a normal person's is about 11 millimeters or like 1 centimeter. Mine was double that amount. Mine was about 22 when I got diagnosed. So with that thickness, they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. So of course that was like, oh my gosh, what the heck, I have it. So then my mom did what all moms do and pushed to get as quickly as many more appointments for my siblings. And a week later, Bethany went in with another one of our brothers and sisters, and she was diagnosed with HCM as well.
Wow. So you guys being so young, that must have been, a lot for your mom and a lot for you too. I guess being that age, I know when I was diagnosed really young, I didn't really even know what it meant. I didn't realize how much of an impact it would have on my life, and how, yeah, like I wouldn't be able to do normal things like a child, like play sports and do physical activity, obviously for a different reason. But I guess, how did it change your life? How did it change your mind and how did it affect you, I guess?
Yeah, I think in the beginning when we got diagnosed, there was a lot of unknown. And so when you look up what is HCM, what's hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and you see that usually it's this condition that young athletes die from, and unfortunately they die because it's usually an asymptomatic condition. And then you start doing more research and you find out that there are symptoms, and me and Hannah had those symptoms way before we even realized it was a heart-related condition that was causing us those symptoms. But it definitely opened our eyes, definitely made us feel like you grow up fast. You start to see not only like physical changes, within your body and things like that, because you're going through this condition, you're getting new medications, how's your body reacting, but also just like mentally, the toll that it takes on you. And just this last year, we celebrated 10 years with the diagnosis. And when we looked back on it, we thought of all the ways that our life changed. I was supposed to be a professional ballerina. I was training for that. That's what I was doing my whole life. I went to school for that. And then unfortunately one day they say, your heart's no good and you can't do that anymore. So that was a huge change for us, or for me. Hannah too physically had to stop most physical activities. What's some other?
I have a question,
Oh.
if you mentioned earlier that it's the #1 killer of young athletes. Is that because it's not diagnosed, or is it even after it's diagnosed that there still is a high mortality rate?
I think it has to go both ways. It's definitely one because they're not diagnosed, and then sometimes, unfortunately, we've heard of other people that have had similar conditions, or like HCM, like us, and unfortunately, they are diagnosed with it. They're not given an implanted defibrillator, and unfortunately, they die from it because either nobody was there or nobody knew what was going on. So we have seen both sides.
What might be some of the symptoms that one might be aware of? And I know that's part of what you do now, is educating people, not only the teachers and the first responders, but parents and everyone about what this condition is. It seems to me and I've been around athletes and young athletes most of my life, with whether it be little league or high school sports or whatever. And I'm just wondering if those were conditions that maybe coaches and people don't recognize and could turn out to be fatal in the event that someone does have HCM.
Yeah, I think the symptoms end up kind of being things that people decide are kind of like, oh, that's normal for a girl that age. So for example, one of the big symptoms is fainting, and Hannah and I both had that. And our pediatrician dismissed it like that was normal for Hannah to be fainting at that age, and that's not normal. Another one is rapid heart rate. Another one is irregular heartbeats. Another one is shortness of breath, or fatigue. And another big warning sign is like family history. If anybody in your family has unfortunately died under the age of 50 is a huge red flag. What am I missing?
A big thing too that we also push with the warning signs is if you can't keep up with your peers. And I think when you think heart conditions or heart disease, you don't think of young people, and that's a reason also why people don't react to thinking, oh, that's cardiac arrest, or oh, they could have a heart condition. You're like, nah, you're young, you're healthy, you're playing sports. It couldn't be something cardiac related. And that also too with that myth or misinterpretation that young people do have bad hearts. And so a big thing is that we've seen too, or like coaches telling them like, keep running when the kid's like, oh, I can't run anymore. Oh no, you're pranking it, or not believing that young people can have it. And we talk a lot about like when we would come home, like I would play like full basketball games and be like, oh, my heart's beating really fast. Let me just sit down, and thinking, oh, well, it's because I just played a full basketball game. Like, no wonder I'm exercising. They tell me my heart's going to increase. Like, she had a thing where in PE class, they're all, where you would rest after a minute and be like, okay, let's check our heart rate. And, everybody's over here being like, okay, I got mine like 90, now it's like resting, it's coming up. And these over here, like, I got 200, but I'm not going to say that out loud because that's embarrassing. Like, maybe I just can't check my pulse. So I'm going to say what the other kids say, because no one ever tells you it can be too fast. They just say, oh, it's going to be fast, around this number, but not like, hey, if you get some higher, everybody know, and especially your doctor, because that's not normal. So yeah, we're very big on educating everyday people, because knowledge is power and knowledge can save lives. And knowing, wait, that doesn't seem normal. And in presentations that we've done, especially at like high schools, and we'll even do it at elementary and middle school, I'll have people, after we present the warning signs, kids come up to me and tell me, oh my gosh, I have like all of those, or oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was not normal. Because I think as a young person, you don't want to be looked down upon or pitied, or being seen like imperfect, or be embarrassed for something like that that's out of like ordinary. So you hide it and you keep it and you push through. So it definitely does help a lot of having, looking at young people like, oh wait, no, I should know about it. And of course, if you have all of them, does not guarantee you have a heart condition, but it opens your eyes, and also opens the doctors that you see like, hey, this is like, why am I having this? Find the answer of why you're having these certain signs or symptoms, because they could be leading to something else. And it's always good to know about your health and be on top of that.
It's amazing that you have turned this maybe not ideal situation and this ideal diagnosis into something that can make an impact on young people and people of all ages, to be aware of their health. And I think that kind of goes in line with what Tag4life is trying to do as well, trying to bring awareness into protecting your health, and I guess being aware of the symptoms of certain things. And I want to hear about Get HeartCharged, and I want to hear that story. But I first want to ask, because I think it's so interesting. I know that Bethany, you have an implant. I think it's called Jolt, correct? Could you talk a little bit about, I guess, what it is and what it does, and when you got it implanted?
So actually, Hannah and I both have implanted defibrillators. Mine was originally on my side, which most of the photos you see now on the Instagram page are when Jolt was on my side. Unfortunately, I found out in August of last year that Jolt was dying 5 years before he should on me. And I had to, I basically had 3 months to get a new defibrillator implanted. So now I have a similar defibrillator like Hannah. So basically what an implanted defibrillator is if you've ever seen like when you're getting shot, like in TV or movies where they put the paddles and they shock your heart back to life, imagine like a mini version of that, but inside you. So, Jolt was a box on my side, and then the wire ran up my chest. So basically the box on this side and the wire here were around my heart and would shock it if I needed to. now the defibrillator that I now have, which Hannah has the same of, is a smaller device set kind of behind here in my armpit area. And that wire actually goes all the way inside my heart. And then that has a wire in it, and that's used to restart my heart. So basically, if your heart starts doing something that it's not supposed to, it will kick in and bring you back to life. And now my new defibrillator or implanted defibrillator is called Jolty with a Y. So
I love it. That's so cool. I think it's so amazing that technology has advanced so far, but I know that there was some sadness with losing Jolt, and I know that it was kind of a shock to lose them, lose him
yeah,
a
yeah.
few years before you were supposed to. So I guess I know that that was a lot for you to process, and I really appreciated the post that you made about it and the little letter that you wrote to him. But I guess, could you kind of talk about those feelings? And I don't know, I guess I know that you had said that there was no warning sign for it. So I guess to bring awareness for people that may have this implant, I guess what should they be aware of with this device?
Yeah, definitely just make sure, so starting with like the awareness, the device should make a beeping noise or some type of a noise to alert you when something's wrong with it. And then definitely when you go in to get a device check with your electrophysiologist, make sure that when they do the device check that they give you a printout and tell you what the battery life is. Because what ended up happening is the company recalled a certain year that the device was put in people, and I was the last year that it was. And I never received the letter. So when I started beeping randomly, it was basically telling me it was on its last leg. And when I looked back at my charts that my doctor had, it showed that the battery was depleting like every week by 10%, but unfortunately nobody was alerting me. So sometimes you have to be kind of your own advocate, your own person. So my biggest thing now going forward is every time I go to the electrophysiologist, I'm like, can I see that printout? Like, what is my battery life? So I can keep an eye out and make those changes and notes. But then going back to kind of just my feelings and emotions, I guess because I grew up as this girl that you know, as a ballerina, as a dancer, you stand in front of, you know, a mirror almost like 6 hours a day, and you're critiquing yourself and everything that, you know, how do you look? Is this right? Is my arm in the right position? And so when I was told I was going to get Jolt and that it was going to stick out, my surgeon was like, but don't go look up any photos on the internet because you're not going to see anybody like you. And it made me question, like, but how am I gonna look? Like, why am I supposed to look different? And when I realized how little I was and putting Jolt in, I was really, really scared to face my new reality. And I kept thinking, well, what are people gonna think? They're gonna think I'm ugly, they're gonna think I'm deformed, they're gonna think, what is that? And I got all of that. But I was like, am I gonna be able to accept myself? And I remember when I got Jolt and I looked in the mirror for the first time, and it was like 4 weeks after all the bandages came off. And I smiled really big, and I was like, wow, I love him. He's like this little box that's inside me, and he's kind of annoying sometimes, but I love him. Like, he was now part of me. And so I spent all this time like finding this, you know, confidence, this ability to accept something that at the end of the day I couldn't choose, but I accepted him, and I loved this part of me because I knew it was keeping me safe. So then to find out that suddenly out of nowhere I have to get rid of him, I almost felt like, but I just, you know, I just accepted him in this reality, and why is all of this changing and what happened? And it definitely played tricks. And then unfortunately, the device that Jolt was, my heart condition worsened, and my cardiologist decided to use this as a time to put a device in that could have a little bit more capabilities than Jolt could. And so then it was like, but I didn't get to do all these things that I imagined and I visioned for Jolt, because I felt like I met a lot of people for me being so open and sharing what Jolt looked like on me. I met a lot of people along the way that thanked me for that, and thanked me for, you know, being so open about it so they could accept, you know, their Jolts. And so when I was losing him, I felt like I was letting the people around me down. And I was like, no, I promise. Like, I'm not getting rid of it because I don't want it. I'm getting rid of it because unfortunately he doesn't suit me anymore, my heart condition. But yeah, so lots of different emotions.
Hannah, a question for you. what are you folks doing now? That's what I am so interested in hearing, because your journey's amazing. And what I really get excited to learn about is how you've taken all of that now and uh, kind of transformed it into action, that you're now serving the community and bringing enlightenment into the community regarding this. So tell us a little bit about your foundation and organization and what you do.
Yeah, so the minute we were diagnosed and we looked online and we were seeing all these kids our age dying, and having like a background in like politics and local government, and our mom always being like, hey, like go voice and like speak about it, and realizing, hey, nobody's talking about it. We're gonna have to own this part of ourselves to get the awareness that it needs. And then after Bethany had gotten her ICD implanted or jolt, she was like, hey, I think we should like make an account on social media that's just solely for this, to talk about young people with it, to talk about body positivity and the scars that come with having a heart condition. And so I credit all of her for coming up with HeartCharged. And so we went to social media and like specifically made this account, and we were astonished with how much people needed this and how many people we met around the world who like, we remember this one guy from Scotland in our first few months was like, I never met anybody else with HCM, like this is so cool. And seeing the power of social media to connect with other people around the world and know that they weren't alone, and to be able to offer that patient to patient support through it. And then within the year, people were like, hey, because we wanted to do like giving gift backs to people who had recently just gotten diagnosis or having gone through heart surgery, to give like, you know, care packages to. They're like, hey, if you want to get in with the hospital, you kind of got to seem a little bit more legit than an Instagram account. So we became an official 501c3 nonprofit, and this is all amongst two during COVID, because we started it in 2020. So we were able to become a nonprofit and really be able to open the doors to be able to be a part of, you know, other, you know, connect with other organizations and connect with hospitals, to be able to bring out awareness. And after I got diagnosed, I ended up finding my passion in filmmaking. And so that's why we enjoy a lot doing stuff on social media about making different videos to get people talking about certain things. Because, I mean, you'll see it's very eclectic. It's a little bit like, okay, we're on this thing too, because we realized like there's so many avenues to cover, you know, whether that's about body positivity and somebody getting an ICD and talking about that, or whether that's about sharing the warning signs, or whether that's talking about, hey, sudden cardiac arrest is the #1 killer in school campuses. What are we doing? Oh, why are women less likely to get help for sudden cardiac arrest? And so we just like to cover all bases and do our part, and in a way kind of look at it in an innovative way of, hey, if the results have always been the same, what can we be new and bring a new idea and bring our own perspectives of gratitude, but creativity, to be able to get the conversation started and also make people feel seen in this. But for me, like the reason, especially for Bethany getting her like ICD, is like my ICD saved my life, because I went into cardiac arrest 6 months after I got it implanted in my sleep. So I wouldn't be here for it. So a lot of it always comes back to the gratitude we feel to still be here and still be alive. And realizing that this isn't like an end all be all. There is no cure to our heart condition. It is constantly, you know, lifestyle changes. And so we always get saddened when we hear other people, especially young people, dropping dead of cardiac arrest, and realizing like, what can we do? Like, we obviously, you know, got saved here to have a little bit more time on this earth. What can we do with it? What can we do to impact our own voices, to get the message out there? So it really comes from a big place of gratitude, and just realizing like, hey, everybody should know this, and what can we do about it?
Well, you've shown me two things. One is how to get onto Instagram, because that's the only I'm on now, is to follow Tag4life and you too, because I finally figured out how to get a password and an Instagram account. I'm more of a LinkedIn guy, but I'm pressing just to follow you folks. Question for you, because you know we're in the business, if you will, of providing medical IDs. for those who, for whatever reason, in a situation might not be able to speak for themselves, or were having that medical condition and information would be really necessary, if not vital, in the case that a first responder or somebody would need to provide medical assistance. How does that play into your lives? Do you see that as something that is really necessary for you and others with your condition to have?
Yes. The minute we got our ICD, when we talked with, our cardiac surgeons and our electrophysiologist who deals with that device, they're like, okay, now that you have this, here's your card, it tells you the model, and you need to get a bracelet that says that you have this, because obviously if you looked at us and we were, dropped unconscious, you would not know that we had an implanted cardio defibrillator unless you undressed us and you saw the scars, and even then, unless it was like Bethany's SICD that was bulging out of her, you'd still be like, what is that? So like it's so hand in hand with it. And it becomes part of your identity, because it's like, hey, you have this device, you need to have people know it. And while you're talking about this device, you also need to let them know that you have this heart condition, and other things that come with our heart condition. I remember they told me, I first looked at the bracelets and they're like, okay, but you kind of got a little bit more, so we're gonna have to get like a big one where you could write a good chunk of information on there, because we also need to put your medication that you take. So as much as like the heart condition is part of our identity, having these medical bracelets is very much a part of like, living life as a heart patient.
And I was just gonna add, I think it helps too, because like, for example, one time I was in the UK and you're not supposed to go through the metal detector with the defibrillator. Like you can go through the 3D scanners, but not like the one that's the door frame. And unfortunately, the guy didn't believe me. And I was like, but I have my bracelet, I have my bracelet. And I think sometimes it's just maybe like an identification or a way for us living with this condition, or looking at you guys, like we don't know that we're living with these conditions. We look healthy, we look normal, but sometimes it's a way to not really have to say much, but to say, hey, I have something, and like, will you just let it go, or whatever the situation is. So they're super beneficial.
As a gift of gratitude for you doing this today with us, we're going to provide you with some brand new ones that have the QR codes on them, so you don't have to wear the big bracelets with all the engraving, but it's be something real special, and we'll make sure that we get those to you right away. Victoria.
Yeah. I wanted to say, I really resonate with what you guys had said, that you're using this as like a form of gratitude. Like you feel like you were given this second chance at your life, and that you're here for a reason. And I think as transplant recipients, I think Ken and I can both sort of relate to that, and using what we've gone through to try and better the world and make an impact, bring awareness, whatever it may be. So it's very admirable. And I'm so grateful that you guys that you guys are doing that, because it's so important. I think I've experienced a lot as being young and being a woman. I just don't think people have taken me seriously, and doctors haven't taken me seriously. And I think it's hard sometimes to advocate for yourself. And so you ladies kind of being that encouragement and being that, I guess, representation that it's okay to have these things going on, and it's okay to advocate for yourself. I think it's just so incredible. So yeah, thank you guys.
And one last thing, how can we help you? How can tag4life partner with you, or what can we do to help you with your mission and your organization going forward?
I mean, we love what you do with it, and the fact of like cutting the cost for people to get bracelets, because when you think about all the other things first of all, if you just think about the medical bills to just see doctors and specialists, and you get so overwhelmed that you're like, oh my gosh, and then you kind of have to start like debating, you're like, well, is that worth it? Do I really need that? And so being able to ease the cost, and I think there's many people in our community would benefit from that, of just people knowing more about this program, and collaborating in that. For us, it always, I mean, we're very grateful to be able to accomplish a lot in like not much dollars, because we're just very resourceful. So if anyone ever wants to donate, we're never gonna say no. We will use $10 to the most it will ever work for. But I think just getting the knowledge out there about the bracelets and letting people know, because like I've had my bracelet, the first one I ever got, for 8 years. That's how as long as I've had my ICD. And then when you brought it up, I was like, oh, it would be nice, you know, to like get a new one, or, you know, like all this stuff. And I even remember when I was working at a visitor center, and when I would see people come in with different like medical bracelets, I would always compliment them and be like, I love your bracelet. And they'd be like, what? Because, you know, no one ever compliments you on your medical bracelet. And then they're like, yeah. I'm like, I have one too. And like, it was almost a way of like, oh my gosh, wow, like we can relate even though we don't have the same condition. But it was like, I see you, and I notice those little things, because I too have now become alert to, you know, whether it is a small little bracelet or a necklace that you wear. So it's really great what you guys are doing. And I think a lot of people in our community would benefit from knowing that and having a cost cut for them, that they wouldn't have to necessarily think about adding, that they can simply say, yes, yeah, I should get a new one. I should get it, because I don't have to think about all the other stuff I have to pay for.
Well, and we really want to commit to sharing your story and your mission with our listeners and the people that we come in contact with as well. So
Yeah, I think you guys are already doing so much to bring awareness to so many things. And I think this is just an additional thing that sometimes I think doctors even overlook. And it seems like a small thing, but I think it has a really large impact. So yeah, I think it's worth sharing with Tag4life, and also worth sharing your guys' organization and what you're bringing awareness to. To wrap it up, I think I just want to ask, like, is there anything else you would like to say or talk about, or, you know, something important?
Just to please follow us on Instagram at HeartCharged, and to stay in touch, and to remember that your life doesn't end with a diagnosis.
great. Thank you both very, very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
So much.
Thank you for listening to Saving One Life Yours, a podcast by Tag4life. Please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube Podcasts. And if you'd like to drop us a line, whether to suggest future topics or for any other reason, please do so at contact@tag4life.org. At Tag4life, we shine a powerful light on medically vulnerable people who, for whatever reason, can't speak for themselves. We do this by helping to cover the cost of their medical IDs, no questions asked. So how can you help? Go to tag4life.org, or if you're watching our video podcast, open the camera app on your smartphone and click on the QR code to get to our homepage. Then click on the Donate button to contribute to our cause. Thanks so much for your support.